What's up, listeners? I'm your host, Ryan McConaughey, and this is the NK Propogandy Boyz, the podcast all things North Korea. Today on the Poddy, we're talking about North Korea and how it interacts with other countries. Our special guest today will be propaganda specialist Jackson Reader, defector Ryan Ferguson, who is an expert in North Korea-China relations, economist Jake Zarnicki, and information smuggler Cohen Walker. To start, we're going to go into North Korea's foreign diplomacy.
Alrighty. Thank you, Dungeon Master Ryan. So, where's North Korea?
It's over by China a little bit. It's in Asia.
Okay.
I think it's north of South Korea.
Hey, there we
okay.
go. Yeah, wait, but why is there two Koreas?
Oh, I don't know, Ryan. Why?
I don't know.
Was there a war or something?
Oh, I think so. Following World War II in the 50s, there was a war called the Korean War, and it was about some communists up in the north versus some U.S.-backed. I believe it was actually a dictatorship down south as well, and there was a big old war with the lines going back and forth. And then eventually China ended up sending in the troops because they were an ideological ally of the North Koreans. And it eventually ended pretty much roughly where it was divided to start with, around the 38th parallel. And that's where the DMZ is today, in the modern day border between the two countries. Yeah. But so what's the ideology of North Korea? Do you guys know?
No, Ryan, what is it?
You know it, Jake.
The ideology of North Korea?
Yeah.
Aren't they ruled by a communist leader, Ryan?
Aren't they, Ryan?
I think they are. He goes by the name of Kim Jong-un, and he is in fact a quite good golfer.
Is he?
That's what I've heard.
Oh.
Wait,
I've also heard that.
How many Kims have there been? Which one are we on now?
I think we're on at least the third.
Yeah.
But there was the Kim before that too that created the country, right?
Yeah, that's why I said
That
at
was
least.
the grandpa. The grandpa of Kim Jong-un
So
created the
third?
country. Yeah, the first.
Are they all called
So yeah,
Kim?
there's
Yeah,
three.
the first name is all Kim, and it's like
Korean
Kim
name is
Il,
just
Kim Jong something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really don't speak Korean, so I don't really feel comfortable pronouncing the names all that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much these leaders have been very heavily censoring the information going in and out of the country as to try to support their elitist views, and they don't want the citizens to know otherwise.
How does that affect how the country functions?
Well, without information from foreign countries and foreign media, they're basically only allowed to believe what they're told by their leader, which is used to support their ideology.
What's their ideology?
That their leader is basically a god who knows how to do everything right and also is the best at golfer.
What's your source?
Everything.
Touche, dude. Yeah, man.
How do you feel about that, Jackson Reader?
Well, yeah, information smuggling is a big problem. Or not a problem. It's one of the solutions that people have been trying to use to get information into North Korea, to kind of disillusion the citizens from their illusionment. But also with information smuggling, on the opposite end of the spectrum is propaganda, and North Korea leans heavily into propaganda, not just for North Korea, embracing North Korea, but also they lean into propaganda going against other countries, such as especially the United States. The United States is a heavy contender for North Korea, so they try and make their citizens hate the United States and United States citizens, so that if people do try to disillusion them, that they will still have that hatred for America.
Does that affect North Korea's relations with other countries then?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It definitely affects it, because then that means the citizens aren't going to be friendly towards American citizens or other countries that they propagandize. But also, North Korea has propaganda going out of North Korea to try and show that North Korea is a better place, and that definitely affects when you really look into how North Korea's situation is economically, and just how much poverty there is. They try to portray that as there's a lot less. They try to portray that out towards other countries. Yeah.
Yeah, as early as 1970, North Korea was using postage stamps to portray U.S. soldiers as evil savages, basically to try to get all their citizens to believe that even though the U.S. may be advanced, maybe they're not even advanced at all, they're actually just evil people that are trying to destroy their country.
Is that why they just really hate the South? Because, or, well, no, it's like a weird relation with the South, if I remember correctly, where it's like they still, they want to save the South Koreans because they recognize that, hey, they're also Korean, but another thing is, like, they want to save them from, like, Americans because they believe the Americans are the ones that, like, are ruining South Korea when, you know, when you kind of look at the two countries, South Korea is doing way better off.
Yeah, very early on after the war, after the Civil War, they looked at a lot of the South Korean developmental failures in terms of infrastructure and stuff to try to say that South Korea was still inferior. But now that they're as developed, they pretty much try to like nitpick specific things that are so wrong with South Korea, like environmental challenges that they're having that people are mad about or stuff.
So the North Korea relies heavily on propaganda to control the regime, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah, something now that as technology in the past 15, 20 years has become such a large part of everyone's lives all around the world, North Korea has seen that and they've kind of taken advantage of that. So we have social media, we have search engines, we have all of that. So North Korea, what they do, at first they were kind of hesitant to allow their people to have social media, have all this technology, because it can easily disillusion them, you know? I'd say it's interesting too.
Yeah.
But they can be easily disillusioned because of this technology. So nowadays what they do is they introduce this technology to the people, but they use censorship, heavy censorship, and because of the censorship, these people, all they really know is North Korea, and with that, it becomes a type of propaganda where because of so much censorship, they're not able to see past this, and they kind of think this is the norm because that's all social media is telling them. So, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of taking a turn now. Have you guys actually seen North Korean propaganda, like, just out and about? Like, let's say you're on some social media and you just find North Korean propaganda.
You know, back in my days of TikTok, I remember seeing an account that was like life in North Korea, and it was like all this like nice looking stuff, you know, just happy people walking on the streets, shopping, and you know, just living a nice sunny life. But you know, I don't, from what I've researched, it doesn't seem like that's really reality there, and
it seems.
Yeah, I've seen some photo collages where it's like going between different pictures, and it's like, this isn't Poland, this isn't Sweden, this isn't wherever beautiful country, this is North Korea, and it's actually it's pretty obvious from an outsider view because we realize how stupid the propaganda is. But when you're on the inside, and even then, printed propaganda is actually the most common in North Korea. It's a lot of posters, a lot of like signs, even like some spray paint, and the only news they get is most people can't afford newspapers in North Korea, so a lot of it is just blared over speakers, so it's like completely controlling what they're hearing and what things they have access to about like current world happenings.
The other day, North Korea opened their borders for visitors, and one of the visitors was this British travel YouTuber who went in, and within like 3 weeks of him visiting, they closed it back down because of how much video he got out of the country. They didn't like that, I don't think.
Yeah, I saw. I remember back when I was using YouTube a bit more. I remember seeing like tours of North Korea when you were actually able to do that, and it was always just kind of crazy because like everything looked all like.
It's very heavily regulated.
Oh yeah, you can only go on certain places and certain routes, but it's just kind of crazy. And like like Ryan said, I've also seen on like Reels or Instagram, just like people saying like. North Korea is actually like pretty good. People say like doing those day in a life kind of videos as well, and it's just kind of crazy that like why are they trying to like I don't know. It doesn't make too much sense why they're trying to put propaganda out into the world instead of just focusing on controlling like their own people and putting only propaganda like into their society. Why? What's the point of like getting propaganda out to the world?
I mean, we know just as much about them pretty much as a lot of their citizens know about us. Like, even though there are a lot of bad things that we hear about them, we technically don't know a lot of the stuff that goes on inside North Korea still. So, I believe, like, a lot of people that don't really care about international relations could see that type of propaganda and believe, like, oh, I've heard a lot of bad things about North Korea, but maybe it's not as bad as people say. But a few months ago, I think, or within maybe the last year, there were about 12 teens that allegedly were executed for playing League of Legends. That could...
That's actually
if
terrible.
that went out, if everyone knew about that, maybe the propaganda wouldn't work.
Yeah. Well, kind of switching a little bit again. You okay, Ryan? All right.
My reaction was not appropriate.
If North Korea is putting all of their time and energy, at least the North Korean government is putting all their time and energy into these propaganda machines, like they do all this stuff to push this narrative that they're this great country, they're the greatest country, that all other countries suck. How come they don't just put their time and resources into making their country better?
I think North Korea's worldview influences why they choose to do that. Because they think everyone's going to attack them. They want to, like, be a really strong military power. And without putting that much resources into their military, they can't, like, show their people that they're powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that works together with how their people can be pretty unhappy.
Yeah, and even just looking at the numbers, the GDP of North Korea is only 29.6 billion, in contrast to their southern counterpart, which is over 1 trillion, and the U.S. is 27 trillion. So in reality, they probably don't even have that much money to be able to like increase the quality of life for people. I mean, we saw in that documentary there, or in a documentary that some kids saw in Miss Judy's class. I'm not saying I'm in that class, because I'm an information smuggler, obviously. But there's even a lot of homeless kids in North Korea, and I think with what percentage of the government's funding is probably going towards military and just like practices to try to keep people contained, I don't even think they'd be able to increase the quality of life if they tried.
Do we think it would help if they made their international relationships better with other countries?
Oh, like they just kind of open themselves up a little bit more. Maybe sanctions would be relaxed a bit, I guess. I don't know.
It was better off their citizens. I mean,
definitely, and I mean, already they're even closed off with their closest allies. Like I guess nowadays Russia, but more importantly, I'd say China is like their closest ally. But even then, they're still totally closed off from China. I mean, like we've read. Hopefully, you guys have read in a book in some Miss Tierney's class about a girl with 7 names and her life living close to the border, and they're enforcing the border with one of their closest allies. It doesn't really make too much sense, you know?
Yeah, and it seems like other countries have tried to help them and have tried to get together to find some cooperation, but it just hasn't worked well because it seems to a lot of people that Kim Jong-un is pretty stuck up on his opinions and doesn't really want to change anything. And he'll take some aid from other countries, but doesn't really actually change anything.
Didn't they, if I remember correctly, like in 2012, can you look this up? How North Korea, they stole, I think it was 700 Swedish cars, and they just took them. Like, they said that, we're going to pay you back for this. They never paid, like, the Swedish company back, and so they just stole, like, hundreds of vehicles. And I think, I think that's a decent example of how we can't really trust the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Sanctions are shown to be somewhat ineffective against developing countries for changing their world views, which is pretty important when you're considering the use of sanctions. Because if they're not going to be useful, then you're just causing a lot of harm to the country without changing their views.
Yeah.
We got a quick fact check.
It was 1974, not 2012.
Yeah.
This Ryan guy does not know what he's talking about.
I was thinking of the year that Gangnam Style released.
I love that song.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
We will be doing a rendition of that song at the end of the podcast, by the way. For the extended version.
So okay, guys, why do we think that? Wait, do we think there's any chance that North Korea's government will change and kind of soften their hearts?
Not until there's a revolution or the internet becomes so advanced that they're forced to use it in some capacity in which the citizens will gain enough access to it.
I don't think using sanctions to change it will make a difference. Economically, changing them is going to be really challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you were going to say something, Ryan?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the policies that have been made to try and change things have been pretty inconsistent, and not everybody has worked together as well as they could. So I think there's possibility, but yeah, I agree with what the rest of the group said there.
Yeah, I think if North Korea just,
You know?
What could North Korea do, Ryan, to help their economic
well, honestly,
position?
I think that even actually just we've all heard about how or seen the propaganda of how beautiful some parts of North Korea is, and how they had tourists for a little bit. I think if they were to just open up their borders a little bit, they could introduce tourism, which would totally help the country. I mean, you've got tourist countries all around the world. I mean, especially in the Middle East, but even some places in Asia as well. It's totally tourist economies, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of
from my research,
one of the best ways they could.
what I found was that one of the most effective ways North Korea could revamp their economy to be in a more suitable position as a country would be spending a lot less on the military and including a lot more foreign trade. I look at South Korea as the total opposite of North Korea. They went full capitalist, and their country's in a lot better position right now than the fully communist North Korea. And I think that just shows how connections are the most important thing for developing countries in this world right now.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And so speaking of connections, another thing with North Korea is that their economy is it's still declining. I mean, it's just been a steady
Right, they
downhill
don't have
since the
anything coming
Korean War.
into their economy.
Oh, they've got stuff coming in. They just don't have anything going out. I mean, other than illegal substances like drugs and stuff, which is what they manufacture most.
People escaping.
Oh yeah, people escaping, but I mean, I studied a lot about the relationship with China specifically, and North Korea is an economic burden, especially on China, where it's just constantly taking in resources and food, especially food from them, because North Korea cannot supply its own food. That's why they are pretty prone to famines.
Why do they have such a challenge supplying food? Is it a
Sanctions?
climate thing?
No. It's not a climate thing. I mean, there's a decent amount of arable land there, but another thing is sanctions. You don't have the right resources or fertilizer for farming.
Do they not have good farming equipment? They don't have the same tractors and technology that we do.
I see. Yeah, I don't think they do. I mean, you did a bit more studying on the economy.
Yeah. So everything's connected in a way, and I think one of the main root causes of North Korea's issues comes from how their people are just under resourced. They don't get what they need to thrive.
They aren't educated about what they need to survive either.
Well, yeah, the problem, ideologically, with foreign trading in respects to North Korea is that the citizens, aren't even allowed to access foreign goods for the most part. There has to be some sort of relationship between the people that have supply and the people that, have demand. And if the citizens want some sort of good, that would create a good relationship between North Korea and another country that would be able to supply that. North Korea doesn't want their citizens to even know that such thing exists, so you can't really have a good trade relationship with any country if your citizens can't demand the product to begin with.
The elite in North Korea do get Western goods, so it's a little bit of a disconnect from the rest of the country where everyone's supposed to get the same things, because the elite are way above the normal population of North Korea.
The gap is massive.
That's kind of totally hypocritical because they say that they're a communist nation, and realistically they're more socialist than anything. I mean, you can't have a communist country, but that's kind of crazy. It's just that hypocritical.
Yeah,
true. There's something called co-optation, which is basically the idea that all the elites should band together in order to kind of unify the upper class to keep the country stable, even if it means the lower class doesn't stay as powerful or can't rise up. And I think that's something that North Korea does, sadly, very well. Basically, all the elites are kind of together in believing that North Korea should stay how it is because it benefits them, just no one else.
Yeah, if I remember, that's kind of during Kim Jong-un's rise to power. That's kind of totally what he did was he solidified his group of people around him. He killed off a lot of political rivals.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that way he could all just what's it? It's like he could get in his own echo chamber, I guess, just of people around him.
I think it's worth being said, Kim Jong-un didn't even go to school in North Korea. He went to some boarding school in Europe. I believe it was Austria, but correct me if I'm wrong. It was...
I know a guy from Austria.
Yeah. I'll look it up.
No, you keep talking. I'll look it up.
Oh, okay.
I'm the guy.
Do you think that he knows the truth of his country?
Kim Jong-un.
The guy that runs the country, probably.
Yeah.
or do you think he's legitimately? Do you think he actually starting to believe
He
the
went to
propaganda?
Leberfield, Steinholze, Oberstufe.
Even with all the propaganda around him, people can still believe what's around them, even no matter how.
His school was in it was a Swiss high school.
Oh, Swiss.
Was it Leberfield still?
Theoretically, yes, he could be blinded by his own propaganda, but also I think it's it would be so highly unlikely, and just the things he's done and the decisions he makes. I mean, he definitely knows what he's doing.
It's all in his own benefit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's got the whole country pretty much roughly to himself and even his family.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah. Well, his higher ups. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Dang, it's like a feudal kind of thing.
Yeah. Very sad situation.
He makes it seem like his citizens live a good life, but if he were to just look on the outside and see how happy people in other countries are that don't do things so secluded and like that, I mean, it seems like if he put a little more effort in, people's lives could be quite a bit better there.
I think he just doesn't. He doesn't care about the people's lives because
evil.
he's just trying to do it for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's play devil's advocate and say that he did in the future want to change the economic status of his citizens. How does our economics expert feel about the idea, or how does he think it would be easy to put everyone on a level playing field?
To put everyone on a level playing field?
Yeah.
Everyone on a level.
Well, that would mean the country stays a communist country. Like I said previously, international trade would make a huge difference. I think that's their best route to go. They also need to increase their output of crops, it seems, so that they reduce famines.
Well, they can't grow enough. They can't get fertilizer
But they
manufactured.
can't. They have plenty of good land.
Yeah, but
international trade would let them.
land is only so good. You can only extract so much nutrients from the land.
Technology
You need fertilizer.
grow these, then they need to start trading. I'm pretty confident that this is the best route for them to go if they want to develop as a country.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, the elite probably recognize that any significant social development of any kind economically really for them is going to bring about social development, which will most likely just mean that the regime will just topple in some way or another.
I don't think the regime will be able to sustain itself for indefinitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Another thing is they hardly even sustain themselves. I mean, I did my paper or my annotated bibliography on on China and what they do to support North Korea, and it's actually insane. Like the level that they go to. The only reason that they accept North Korea nowadays is because it's in their strategic interests to keep the Korean Peninsula as like stable as possible. So in the way that it is, if North Korea were to collapse, that wouldn't help them, because then all of a sudden they have a refugee crisis in Manchuria and all over China. And they also want to keep good relations with South Korea, but they want to keep North Korea like on a leash to not freaking destroy South Korea or do something insane like start a nuclear war. And so China is trying to just like keep them afloat. So, I mean, yeah. What was I saying?
Do we think the people that escape North Korea and find an opportunity for something away from their country, do you think they're at, how much of a disadvantage are they at being a defector and not, I mean, they face discrimination and...
Well, they don't even have, like,
in China
any
and South
connections.
Korea.
They have no connections. They
Well,
have
some do.
no money, no food.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
A lot of people have the Korean War was 70 years ago, but there's still a bunch of Korean Chinese and just family members living in China that North Koreans still know and will try to contact to. So there are some connections,
there's
but
some,
it's
but
just they can't do
on
too
the
much.
majority. Yeah, on the majority,
Yeah.
they're disadvantaged. Yeah.
Oh,
They're disadvantaged so much by, I mean, the lack of information. They don't really know how the real world functions outside of North Korea, unless they've really had some way to get information about that. A lot of them, I mean, they might know Chinese, but they pretty much just know Korean and maybe Chinese, and they're left with those languages. Yeah, and going through China, like, yes, it's better than North Korea, but it's still not like the most amazing country in the world. It's not the land of opportunities. Yeah, so I think it's really difficult.
A lot of the women that end up in China become a part of human trafficking, and it just doesn't go well for them, and they put themselves at a big risk to try and find a better life, but they really don't have much of an opportunity, and it will take a long time.
There's no safety net for them. There's like another thing from the book that we read by Hensoo Lee, the girl with 7 names, is that she had family living in China and some connections in China, and that provided her like some grounds to go off of and learn Chinese fluently in like the 2 years that she lived with them.
Yeah.
And then like that was her safety net, kind of like she stayed at home just learning Chinese, and then eventually like learning how everything kind of more or less worked, and so she was able to like go off of that. But a lot of people just don't have that, and like you said, just end up in or like horrible places, like in human trafficking or.
And once if the Chinese government finds out that they're from North Korea, they can get sent back and their family can be punished, and so can they.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, if the people there in China or wherever else they end up find out, I mean, they're probably not going to be a big fan of that, and they're not going to have much job opportunity because of that, and people aren't going to be welcoming.
According to my most recent research, as of a few minutes ago, the Protection of Defecting North Korean Residents Act in South Korea actually grants automatic South Korean citizenship to North Korean defectors and provides resettlement assistance.
But
so
that's
there are
only if they get there.
Yeah, but there are definitely aspects of other countries that try to help North Korean defectors just because they realize how dire their situation is.
Yeah, like Mongolia as well. And it's just the main thing is China and Russia, the two places that North Koreans can actually like more or less realistically get through and get out of.
The least protected border.
Yeah, like China is like crazy because they're trying to ensure the stability of North Korea, so they're also gonna try and curb the amount of like economic migrants, they call them, illegal economic migrants. And so they just keep on sending them back, but that's just that country's socially screwed up, like on a whole nother level.
China's the only country that North Korea really trades with, like, continuously and consistently.
If anything, I mean that's where like a lot of drugs actually comes from, like from around the world. a lot of drugs is manufactured in North Korea, goes to China, which distributes it around the world.
Yeah, in the context of there being so much unrest that people still want to escape even after all the restrictions, what do we think the odds are that within the next 30 years there will be some sort of revolution or some sort of war that might actually drastically change the government?
I think it's high.
Yeah,
Like,
very high.
Especially with more. I mean, like I've already said, with technology increasing, there's more chances of slip ups. With information smuggling, that disillusions the citizens to they'll kind of see the wrongness of their leaders, and with mass disillusionment, with a mass change of the minds of these people, where they no longer view their leaders as gods, they view them as just people who are selfish people who are trying to keep their own power, then they could easily see that, oh, we need a revolution, we need something like this. So I think once more people start seeing that, then there's definitely a high chance of revolution. Hopefully it goes well. Hopefully they can overthrow the leaders, but we will never know till we see.
Yeah, and that's why something as simple as like information smuggling or media smuggling is so important, because even something as simple as just like a movie, like an action film, has shown to be something that people really cherish there. Even if it's illegal, they're actually willing to hide it. It's not important, but it just shows like people are willing to be rebellious against their government if it means they can have a better life or just do something that they're not supposed to just because they enjoy it.
The foundations for change are just being laid now, with information being smuggled in, and like you said, just information getting in and people being willing to rebel, like that's setting, or like do things that are illegal, that's setting a precedent for the future that, if more and more people are going to be doing that, I don't think it's going to be a very stable country going into the future.
Alright guys, that'll wrap it up for our first episode of the NK Propogandy Boys. We thank you very much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed our great talks with the gang today. Thank you guys very much for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Or not.
Adios.